Welcome to Clear Direction Training. In this video, I'm going to show you a neat little function called IFERROR that fixes a common problem in formulas. It's going to make your spreadsheets look better and in general save you from a lot of headaches. First, let's look at the problem. Often, but hopefully not too often, a formula results in an error message instead of the data you expected. For example, a formula might be trying to divide a number by a blank cell or a zero, and so you get the divide by zero error. Or perhaps a formula includes a cell that should have a number, but for some reason has text instead. In this example, we're trying to multiply 10 by no data, and so we end up with a value error. In our third example, we want the square root of C3. But C3 has a negative 10 in it, and so we get the dreaded num error, which means that there's a number there, but there's something wrong with the number. Finally, and this is very common, you may have a VLOOKUP function that returns NA. If you've never used a VLOOKUP function, briefly, it looks up a value, for example, the region, in this case, region 5, in a table like this one. When it finds the value, it's supposed to return an answer from one of the other columns in the table, in this case the name of the region's director. Unfortunately, our table has no region 5 in it, and so we get an NA error, which is how VLOOKUP tells us it couldn't find the value in the table. Of course, these errors might be due to a mistake in writing the formula. Maybe it's pointing at the wrong cells, and so we just need to fix the formula. On the other hand, they may come about because we simply can't guarantee that we'll always have all the data we need or that it will be properly entered. Let's look at an example of that. Here we have a short list of locations. Maybe they're stores, maybe they're some kind of field offices, but whatever they are, we have the location number and its sales for quarters 1 and 2. Q3 and Q4 are empty because we haven't gotten there yet. At the bottom of each column, we want to have an average function pre-entered so that when we do get those numbers, we can just put them in and have the formulas give the answer. The problem is that average needs numbers. If there aren't any, or if they're all zeros, it results in a divide by zero error. Of course, one easy fix for this example would be to just wait until we do have the numbers and then copy the average function over. But that assumes that whoever's entering the data will know how to put in an average function and will remember to put in the average functions. Because we can't be sure of that, we're going to use the IFERROR function instead. What IFERROR is going to do is try to give us an average, but if it gets an error instead, to return some other standard answer. To accomplish this, IFERROR needs two pieces of information, or arguments. The first argument is the formula that potentially results in an error. In this case, that'll be our average function. The second argument is the value we want to see when we do get an error. Let's try it. First, we'll go to the formula for Q1. And just to save a little bit of work later, what I'm going to do is go up to my formula bar and select everything after the equal sign, and then click the cut command. That way, when we write the IFERROR function, instead of making you wait while I retype the whole thing, I'll just paste it in. Next, we'll put in IFERROR right after the equal sign, and of course a left parenthesis to start the function off. Next, we need to put in our first argument. Now remember, that's our average formula, and in this case, I'm just going to paste it in. In the real world, you could retype it from scratch if you really want to. It doesn't matter how you get it there, just so you have it. After that, we'll type a comma to tell Excel we're moving on to the next argument. For this one, you actually have a lot of choices. If, for example, you have an alternative answer stored in a cell somewhere, you could put in that cell reference. Or you could put in an alternative formula that would not result in an error. You could even put in a standard error in quotation marks, maybe something like no data. This time, however, I want a standard numeric answer instead of the average. In other words, I want a 0 when we don't get an average. And so all I'm going to do is type a 0, close the parentheses, and press enter. That's it. We've told it to try to get an average, but if an error results, give us a 0 instead. All that's left is to copy it over. So we'll click on that cell, point to the fill handle right here, get the little crosshairs shape that says we're pointing in the right place, and just click and drag it to the right. And sure enough, we get an average for Q1, an average for Q2, and zeros for quarters 3 and 4. Now just to test it, we'll go to quarter 3, put in some numbers, and there's our average calculating just like it should. Well, that brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed this little mini tutorial, and I hope it was useful to you. Until next time, thanks for watching.